So, welcome everybody. Today we are talking about childhood and poetry by Pablo Neruda. Yes, first, who is Pablo Neruda? Pablo Neruda was born in 1904 and died in 1973. He was one of the Chile's most celebrated poets. Not only was Neruda a writer, but he was also a diplomat who held high positions in government. His writings, especially those written during the Spanish Civil War, had a large impact on the politics of his day. Neruda gained widespread attention when he wrote a speech against the president of Chile in which he names every coal miner the president had imprisoned for striking. Neruda won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. So he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, okay? And we want to start again with a background of how he write his essay. Okay. Pablo Neruda spent most of his childhood in Temuco, Chile, during his youth. He befriended Chapriel and Mistral, a talented poet and the principal of the Temuco's girls' school. So he saw that person who encouraged his writing. Neruda published his first poem when he was 13 years old. He published his first poem when he was 13 years old. By age 20, he had published two books and had become one of the best known Chilean poets at the age of 20. Okay, Pablo Neruda is a famous poet. But what is poetry? So we will start with some piece of information about poetry. Poetry is a form of literature. The forms of literature like novels, plays. Yes, so poetry is a kind of literature that uses aesthetics connected with beauty and often rhymic qualities of language, such as sound symbolism and meter, to evoke, to bring to our minds the meaning in addition or in place of the appearing meaning, okay? Ostensible meaning, it means what appears to us. And the poem is the arrangement of words that contain meaning and the musical elements. The poem is the arrangement of words that contain meaning and the musical elements. It's a piece of writing that expresses the writer's thought and feelings in order to set a mood. It can be happy or sad, simple or complex. In just a few words, a poem can say a lot. In just a few words, a poem can say a lot. It can inspire and awe and can be a welcome escape into something that is totally wonderful. A poem can either be rhyming or non-rhyming. It uses symbols and has lines and stanzas that have sentences, fragments of sentences, or both. It uses metaphor and alliteration, especially in poems for children. So, the summary. Poetry is the use of words and language to evoke a writer's feelings and thoughts, to bring to a writer's mind, evoke here it means to bring, to evoke a writer's feelings and thoughts, while a poem is the arrangements of these words. Poetry is a process of creating a literary piece using metaphors, symbols, and ambiguity, while a poem is the end result of this process. Okay. So let's start with listening to the essay.
Childhood and Poetry by Pablo Neruda. Reflective essay. Background. Pablo Neruda spent most of his childhood in Temuco, Chile. During his youth, he befriended Gabriela Mistral, a talented poet and the principal of the Temuco Girls' School, who encouraged his writing. Neruda published his first poem when he was 13 years old. By age 20, he had published 2 books and had become one of the best-known Chilean poets. About the author. Pablo Neruda, born 1904, died 1973, was one of Chile's most celebrated poets. Not only was Neruda a writer, he was also a diplomat who held high positions in government. His writings, especially those written during the Spanish Civil War, had a large impact on the politics of his day. Neruda gained widespread attention when he wrote a speech against the president of Chile, in which he names every coal miner the president had imprisoned for striking. Neruda won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. Childhood and Poetry by Pablo Neruda. One time, investigating in the backyard of our house in Temuco, Chile, the tiny objects and minuscule beings of my world, I came upon a hole in one of the boards of the fence. I looked through the hole and saw a landscape like that behind our house, uncared for and wild. I moved back a few steps because I sensed vaguely that something was about to happen. All of a sudden a hand appeared, a tiny hand of a boy about my own age. By the time I came close again, the hand was gone, and in its place, there was a marvelous white sheep. The sheep's wool was faded. Its wheels had escaped. All of this only made it more authentic. I had never seen such a wonderful sheep. I looked back through the hole, but the boy had disappeared. I went into the house and brought out a treasure of my own, a pine cone, opened, full of odor and resin, which I adored. I set it down in the same spot and went off with the sheep. I never saw either the hand or the boy again, and I have never again seen a sheep like that either. The toy I lost finally in a fire. But even now, in 1954, almost 50 years old, whenever I pass a toy shop, I look furtively into the window. But it's no use. They don't make sheep like that anymore. I have been a lucky man. To feel the intimacy of brothers is a marvelous thing in life. To feel the love of people whom we love is a fire that feeds our life. But to feel the affection that comes from those whom we do not know, from those unknown to us, who are watching over our sleep and solitude, over our dangers and our weaknesses, that is something still greater and more beautiful because it widens out the boundaries of our being and unites all living things. That exchange brought home to me for the first time a precious idea, that all of humanity is somehow together. That experience came to me again much later. This time it stood out strikingly against a background of trouble and persecution. It won't surprise you then that I attempted to give something resiny, earth-like, and fragrant in exchange for human brotherhood. Just as I once left the pine cone by the fence, I have since left my words on the door of so many people who were unknown to me, people in prison, or hunted, or alone. That is the great lesson I learned in my childhood, in the backyard of a lonely house. Maybe it was nothing but a game 2 boys played who didn't know each other and wanted to pass to the other some good things of life. Yet maybe this small and mysterious exchange of gifts remained inside me also, deep and indestructible, giving my poetry light.
So in this essay, the poet wants to bring to our minds a moral value here. This situation make him or give him the light, or give his poetry the light. This is the cause or the reason of evoking or bringing to hold his attention to thoughts, to feel with the things around him. So he mentioned here that from this situation he focus on the people in prison or hunted or alone. He feel uh, with what they suffer. So this is a great lesson I learned in my childhood, in the backyard of a lonely house, in this place. Okay, it may be nothing, he says, it may be nothing, a small situation, but a game two boys played who didn't know each other and wanted to pass to the other some good things of life. Maybe this small and mysterious exchange of gifts remained inside me, remained inside the boat, deep and indestructible, giving his poetry light. Okay, so in Pablo Neruda's short essay, he speaks about an experience that he had as a child in his backyard. One day, while looking through the fence surrounding his house, he saw a boy like himself who reached out and handed him a toy sheep. The boy quickly disappeared, so Neruda brought a treasure for his own and left the boy a small gift in the same spot. Though Neruda never again saw the boy, he kept the gift for the rest of his life. Okay, so from this experience as a child, Neruda says that he learned one of the greatest lessons about his life. That is the appreciation and affection from another person, especially someone that you don't know. This ultimately brought Neruda to the idea that all of humanity is greater than the individual and that we are all somehow connected. For this reason, Neruda spent much of his time, much of his adult life leaving words to people he didn't personally know, showing care for all people of the human race. Okay, thank you guys.